Ska jag prova att säga något? Var det bra? Du får... Alec, får se till när vi är redo att köra. Ska vi köra? Okay. Welcome everyone to this meetup that we here at Digitalist are very happy to host once again. It's extra fun to see so many familiar faces, and that is because we put addictive drugs on our pizzas that make people want to come back again and again. My name is Mats Hildén. I obviously work here, and I'm here to fulfill your wildest dreams about pizza and beer and the like. Unfortunately, you can't ask me about Flutter. But nevertheless, ask me if you need help with anything. I'm happy to help you. Digitalist is a production agency, a digital production agency specializing in open technologies and user experience. And wow, a logo wall. Our clients, please open someone. Our clients include companies like AFRY and Vattenfall, but also big organizations like Unionen and Kommunal, big trade unions, a government agency, open source technology, because we know that good ideas multiply when shared. And this doesn't come as a surprise, perhaps. Do you enjoy the coziness of warm pizza in your tummy? And at the same time, feel a bit excited? Hold that thought, because that might be your future here. We at Digitalist are currently hiring front-end developers, Drupal developers specifically, and app developers. And if you're interested in that, don't hesitate to talk to me or my fellow Digitalist colleagues. Please raise your hands, Digitalist people. There's one or two. There's one more somewhere. And that actually concludes the corporate bullshit section of this evening. So let's get down to business. Over to you, Victor.
Thank you, Mats, and thanks for hosting us. So I'm Victor. I'm hosting this meetup together with Alec, who is back there, and doing our new fancy live stream. So we're going to try to get these meetups up on YouTube as well. I just have a few things to say. I think we have I checked like the meetup page today. We had 999 members. So quite possibly we have 1,000 now. Or else someone can join with an extra account and we passed 1,000 mark. So that's super exciting. And great to see so many of you here, obviously. I'm working on a project called ServerPod, which is a sort of a backend for Flutter. And if you come to the next meetup, it's actually going to be the release party for ServerPod. So that's going to be very exciting. And we're going to make that a little bit bigger than this event. So probably can fit 100 people. So that will be good times. And there will be like a bunch of maybe investors, if you're looking for that kind of connections, that could be good too. And yeah, don't miss that. It's on the October 13th, and we're hiring too. so if you're super excited about Dart and Flutter, which I hope you are because you're here, come. Fair enough. Today we're having two talks. First, it's Björn and Sten-Erik who is going to talk about building web apps for Flutter, and then Lukas is going to say a few words how you can handle multiple packages in monorepos with Melos. So, are you ready? Then we're going to hand it over to Björn and Sten-Erik. There's the second microphone.
Please, yeah. Right. So, let's see now. Maybe, so if I
Can you move them?
full screen, yeah, okay.
Oh, you can
start
display.
by trying to, look, there it is.
Well,
Technology. So now what happens if I press that? Almost, no wait, so that wasn't really what I wanted to do. I wanted to do slideshow. There we go. Okay. Oh yes, Mike.
Men det här behövs inte va?
Du kan hålla in, eller du kan ta av den och sätta den på den. This is fake. Well, yeah. Okay. So, we're Telcred, actually a real company, although we're not very large. Telcred.com, you can check us out on the web. This is the development team. It's Björn, it's Emma, it's myself, Sten-Erik. That's us. What we do, we open doors, which is a good thing, but only to the right people at the right time, in the right place. So that makes it more complicated. It's called Physical Access Control System, and we do this in the cloud, which allows us to interface both with our own apps and allow third parties to easily interface. So then you can integrate your booking system or your surveillance system or whatever you want with the access control, which is exciting for a lot of people that are into it. This is the situation a year ago. Our different components, so we have the server and then we have a thin client called Access Manager, and we have a couple of couple of mobile apps, Home and Personal, and we realized we wanted another web app, or rather we wanted a chunk of web app functionality that we didn't have yet. So we were developing our mobile apps in Flutter, and it's kind of been a dream to use the same component framework and library and language in all apps, but that hadn't been realistic before. But now we had this opportunity, so we decided to try it out and do a leap of faith. So our new app, Site Manager, was, unlike Access Manager, which is a thin client, is a single-page application, a thick client implemented in Flutter. And as you can see, we've never done thick clients before, which was part of part of the experience. What was next? Oh yes. Okay. So now let's see. I need to go over. This is complicated. So I press escape, and there we go. So this is what it looks like. I was just going to show you just some simple interaction here. Björn will talk about some more specific things. But it has a couple of tabs up here, as you can see. And then there's columns. It's backwards. Sorry. I should use reflection instead. I guess this will work. So I'll just type an 8 there and I filter. And I can sort up and down. And I can do that in all columns. I can navigate into these things. I can edit. I can create new ones. There's text fields that look like that. There's actually going to show you a different view. Let me get back here. This has more interaction. So this is a create new lease view. So I'm not going to tell you about the application. I'm just show you some of the technical things, and you'll just have to guess what it does because we're short on time. So text fields, selection, can select something here. When I do, stuff appears down here. You can actually see that because it was below the fold before, but it just appeared. Showing a table, so we have tables, and we have another selection box here which does something similar. If I select create, I get some more fields. And down here, finally, I can add more fields and enter more stuff. Also over here, we have something special. This just got implemented. So here we have a list with selection possibilities in the list. So we can select a couple of items and we can perform an operation on those items. There's some interaction here. And eventually, when we select something, we get a perform button. So that's basically the interaction here. Of course, it actually does something useful too, but it takes a long time to explain it. Not a long time to understand it, but a long time to explain it. Yeah, with that, we're going to start talking about building this, and specifically some things that surprised us a little bit that we hadn't thought of when we started a year ago. So, you want to start?
Yeah, the first thing we started to investigate was that we had a problem with, of course, we went to the web, then we navigate in a different way from on the mobile. So the first thing was to try to find a router. And we tried, first we investigated this Navigator 2 that came at the time, but it was a mess as I found it. So we started to investigate it more and read a lot of documents. Google had some documents, and we tried out some of the routers a little bit, and then we ended up with vRouter. I'm not sure if that was the absolute best solution, but it worked for us. So we didn't spend too much time to investigate it. We didn't have much time. We just investigated a few days. So they ended up with vRouter, and it had worked for us. There were some issues, and technically we had improved some things and had some problems in some situations. But now with Flutter 3, I think we maybe can go back and use the standard routing again. But we have not tried that yet because we haven't had time for that and switch. Of course, during the time we have made around on top of the routing, we have tried to encapsulate all the routing, so we have our own system on top. So it's very few places in the system that really are dependent on the actual implementation. It's more like we have to try to move that. So I think it should be quite easy to replace it. Of course, it maybe takes 1 week or 2 or something. And of course we need a lot of testing, so at the moment we don't have time for that. So that was the first problem.
Yeah, the first thing was that, well, actually we knew this, but it's still, we thought we could neglect it, but it actually was the load time, that it actually takes a while to load the page. So after trying to ignore it for a while, we had to introduce a spinner. Then, as I mentioned, we're new to the clients, and we hadn't thought of the fact that when you reload the page, you reload the app. So the spinner comes in handy because that does take a while. I'll show you, I'll log out here. Or rather, I won't log out. I will show you that I'm not logged out. But if I reload the page, what happens, not only does it take a while, well, actually it got cached somewhere, so sometimes you're lucky. But I also have to log in again, right? Because it loses its state. And obviously that can be fixed in different ways, but that also takes time. We hadn't thought of that. So let me try to log in here. And Björn, you can continue.
Then we had some issues with some specific widgets that wasn't. They were built for the mobile and big hands and thumbs and things like that. But we want to, for instance, hovering over links. We want some feedback for that, and I don't think the standard components didn't provide that. And we
sorry for interrupting. So this is a weird bug that happens. Yeah. So now I didn't think we would be able to recreate it on demand, but now we did. So if anyone knows why this happens, because now it's like dead. Now you have to reload it. Okay, continuing.
Yeah, and another issue we found that, of course, we want drop-downs here in a lot of places to shows in the menus, but they became very long and very a lot of space between the items in the drop-downs. So then we wrote our own drop-down handling and pop-up menu handling. So we wrote a little bit. Of course, we used standard components somewhere in the back, but we wrote components that we were able to make less space between the items in the drop-downs and pop-ups. So now we use them everywhere. It's the same code. And what's strange?
That's weird.
Half the screen.
So zoomed out a bit. I'm not sure where we are.
And hovering and things like that didn't work either. So we had to do some specific fixes for that. Wrap the text widgets in our own widgets and have a variable that keep track of the status of the hovering, and then depending on that we could, when we hovered like this, for instance. And that was some issues that we found out quite quickly. Is there anything else? Shift clicking. We wanted to extend the selections in some kinds, but now does it work? Could you show some of the selection boxes in domains? I think you.
Oh, okay.
I think if you make a new one or something, then we have these. First, I hope that it should be some kind of this type of widget that had these selections provided from the start, but we had to build it ourselves. And then there was another issue: we want to be able to use shift clicks to extend the selections, and then we had to add that as well. So that wasn't there, and that's more common on the web. I don't think you have any use of it on a mobile phone, because how should you shift click, or how should you? So some of these issues, but some at the same time, some things has evolved during our since we started this implementation. So maybe some things. I don't think this has there is any widgets for just what we require here, but it was a little bit not that super complicated, but it was a little bit complicated to get this shift click to work. You have to keep track of the text and the status of the mouse and things like that. So it was not super complicated, but it was a little bit tricky. It took a few hours.
Another thing, we had this extensive design done that made use of different font weights. So there's some weight 400 and weight 500 and weight 600. And there's a lot of work to put into that. And then at the end, when we were supposed to implement this, it turns out that 400 and 500 were the same in Flutter. So 500 didn't exist, which was a disappointment, especially to the designer. So that might have been fixed too by now. I didn't have time to check today. I was going to. So this is experiences. It's not necessarily facts. All right, that was the fonts. Was I supposed to say something else? Oh, that was it.
It's my turn. Is it about tables now?
You're going to talk about, yes.
Yeah, because we had some performance issues with tables. We found out quite lately, I think just a few days ago, that the ordinary data table, if you click we can see a table. This is an ordinary table that we don't have any limit for it. So if you get like 500, 2,000 items in the table, suddenly it becomes incredibly slow, and you can almost not work with other parts of the application either, because nothing happens if you click anywhere, because this table has done something to slow down everything. It takes a lot of memory, and I don't think it's our fault, because we found a solution, and we switched to paginated tables, and then everything became rapid. We have the same amount of data in the memory, but we don't display it. So that's the only difference. But this is the version before, because we fixed that just 2 days ago or something. So we haven't that live.
So our interpretation of that is that components and widgets that are created for mobile phones are not expected to handle huge amounts of data, like a web app application. So they're more likely to be less performant. So you have to be careful with that if you're just check the performance before deciding. Yeah.
Is that the Flutter, which is actually the data table?
Yeah, this is the data table too, actually, but we have added our own headers to the columns, so we are able to filter and this sorting is our own. But it's the ordinary table, so we could just add a widget on the top, our own. So
Flutter has the paginated data table.
Yeah. So no, this is not the paginated one. This is just the flat one. So we switched to it was not that much work. I think a few hours, then we had switched everything to this paginated data table. Of course, there are some issues because something changed. You have arrows to go to the next page and things like that. So it takes a little bit longer to fix that part of it. But just switching to the paginated data table was quite easy.
I have time for one more question. We'll be here afterwards.
Pardon?
For the routing, did you look at Go Router?
Go Router.
No.
It's like it's the Flutter routing.
Oh, okay, we just vRouter. We used vRouter.
I think Go Router was among the pack when we
looked at
evaluating.
It was not a scientific investigation. I think we took something that worked for us, and then we stopped investigate the rest.
That was a year ago, and stuff happened after that. Some other routers got.
We have some links in the presentation. There was some. They didn't. Go Router wasn't among the top ones when they had in this evaluation at that time, and then I've seen that it has changed. But now I think you can use the off-the-shelf router quite easily from 3.0. It seems, I looked at it a little bit, but I have not tried to use it, but I think it seems much better than the first Navigator 2 that seems. I think I didn't understand what I should do. It was a mess in some sense.
Okay, Victor is looking uneasy. So, but we'll be here afterwards. We'd like to meet you if you think that like we're the greatest thing since sliced bread, and you want our pictures on your office wall. Come in and talk to us. If you don't, if you think that you actually need help, yeah, we're really interested in talking to you. And if you think you need my help, then yes, please come and talk to us. We do need your help. So we're going to embark on a much larger project than this. So we are looking at ways to expand the team. Thank you.
And you might be thinking like, okay, so this is usually used for handling packages that you're publishing to PubDev. And you might think like, I never publish any packages to PubDev. I use this in every single thing I build, even though I don't publish anything. It has so many great features that you can use. Yeah, so we're going to start by understanding what problem this package is trying to solve. And we're going to go through what monorepos are. We're going to introduce Melos. We're going to introduce semantic versioning and conventional commits, and how automatic versioning is handled with Melos, and how changelog generation is made, and how it publishes packages. So, like semantic versioning and monorepos, you're probably quite aware of what it is already, so I will just quickly touch it for the ones that don't know about it. So, sometimes if you develop an app, you need to build a new package. You don't want everything crammed into one package. Like at the Skandia Banken, for example, where I'm freelancing right now, or at Flame, we have multiple packages in the same repository that are dependent on each other. But the pubspec file, if you want to have it dependent on each other, you have to use path dependencies, and then when you publish it, you have to change the path dependencies to what has been published, and you have to publish them in the right order, and Melos solves all of these problems. And other things that it also solves is versioning these dependencies properly. So if you want to follow semantic versioning, it will automatically create the correct next version for you, so that your users don't get breaking changes when they don't expect them and such. And a very nice thing that we especially noticed in Flame is that when you have a changelog in your repository, and it's mandatory for all the users to add a line in the changelog every time they do something. This creates massive amounts of merge conflicts, because every time, every pull request will have one of these changes in the changelog. And say that we have, 10 pull requests per day to Flame. Then someone will always have to, it's very simple, conflicts, but still, they're there every time, and it's something you shouldn't have to solve. And this Melos also solves, and it also solves that you don't even have to write the changelog at all. It generates a really nice changelog for you from your commits. So what is monorepos? So it's when, instead of having a multitude of Git repositories next to each other, you have everything in one monorepository. And this have some cons and some pros. Like Google, for example, they have a monorepo that is 80 terabyte big. They have had to build their own system to handle this, because Git can't handle 80 terabytes. So when you go that far, you're like, was it really worth it? But when you have like 10, 20 packages, and then your whole repository is maybe a few hundred megabytes at tops, then it works really well. So when you use a monorepo, you can really easily reuse code over different packages. The dependency management becomes very, very simplified if you have interdependent packages, because you can depend on things within your package. You don't have to, I don't know if anyone have used Git submodules, but it can become a complete hell to sort out when you have you pull down a Git repository, and then you have to pull down other Git repositories into that Git repositories, and you have no idea what version things are. And you have atomic commits, so say that you make several changes upon several of these packages at the same time, but they're related. Then you can push those commits and squash them into one, instead of making those commits over several different repositories, even though they are related. And if you want to refactor something within your mono repository, you're like, okay, I want to change the name of this class. And you just use your ID, refactor, and it will refactor all of the packages that are dependent on that one. And that is quite hard to do if you're not in a monorepo. And you can have easy collaboration across teams. And then what is the console using a monorepo then? You can't have like per project access control in an easy way. You can set it up so that people can't do pushes against your projects if you have them split up over teams or so. But all of the people that have access to the monorepo will always be able to read all the code in there. So at Google, everyone can read all those 80 terabytes of code. And the Git performance, as I said earlier, if you have an enormous monorepo, it can get out of control. So I would suggest using monorepos for everything that is related, but don't go like with too many packages in the same one. And it's obviously more storage needed by default because you pull down the whole repository. There are some solutions for this too, where you don't pull down the whole repository, especially in the latest Git version. They have solved some of that, so that you don't have to do that. So what is Melos? Melos is a command line interface tool that helps you to manage your Dart and Flutter projects, and when they are in a monorepo. And also, like, it could be a monorepo with one package in it, and it will still help you a lot. And Melos will do automatic versioning for you and changelog generation, as I said. And it will go through your packages and see what needs to be published, so you don't have to keep track of that yourself. And then it will put the right version on it when it publishes it, and with the correct changelog, etc. So a lot of people are writing their own scripts to do this. I was talking to Victor earlier, and he just like we were doing in Flame from the beginning, we were like, okay, this is so messy to handle on your own. So we wrote a script for it, and then a year later, Melos come around, and we're like, oh, this is fucking amazing. And local package linking. So when you never have to touch the pub spec files to change the versions of your own packages, it will always, you just say like, Melos will always update it to be dependent on the latest version of your package if that is needed. And when you're working locally, it will have a path dependency that it puts into a new file called pubspec overrides. So when you're publishing it, it will depend on the latest version that is published, but when you're developing it, it is dependent on what the current code changes are. Which would be very, like if you would have two different packages, you would have to like publish one or have Git dependencies on one or path dependencies on one, and go back and forth like that until you publish. And it has a little bit like a make file. You can do simultaneous commands across packages. So if I do like Melos analyze, for example, it will run Flutter analyze across all packages. So you can use that in your CI or locally, and then it can speed up things a lot. And a lot of the time you have other things that you want to run simultaneously across packages, like code generation or formatting, or whatever you can come up with. Then you can write your own little line very simply in the Melos YAML file, and Melos will just handle the rest for you. And it can list the local packages and their dependencies. So now you're like, oh, I'm sold. How do I install this? And you write this little line. Like, I don't know why Pub and Flutter made it so hard to install things that are not packages. You're like, which order were these things in again? Like Flutter, Pub, Global, Activate, Melos. And then if you have those that package folder on your path, you will be able to use Melos everywhere. So for a thing that is related, which most of you probably know, but I will tell it to you anyways because it's very relevant to the topic. So semantic versioning is a versioning system that has 3 numbers in it. The first one is major, the middle one is minor, and the last one is patch. The patch one is if you do like bug fixes and stuff, but there are no new features and there are no breaking changes in it. And the minor one is if there are new features, but there are no breaking changes in it. And the major one is if there are breaking changes in it. And this makes it very easy for people that are depending on your package to be sure that they will still be able to use your package even if they upgrade to a newer version. So you might have seen this caret in your pub/spec files. That means that I can depend on all packages with this version until the next major version. So it'll be 1.00 until 2.00. And in the pub/spec file you can also set all kinds of crazy ranges in there if you would like to. And conventional commits is usually, there are a lot less people that have heard of conventional commits. And conventional commits are basically just a prefix that you put on the commit that is going into your trunk branch, like main or master. So this could be feat for feature, fix for a bug fix, docs if it's documentation, sure if it's something like publishing packages. And you can also put scopes on all of these ones. So if you have like ticket numbers, or say that I'm working on a collision detection system, then I might have feat collision, and then the changelog that will be generated later will be sorted by those ones, so that you can have several features connected to the same scope. And then we have this exclamation mark, which means that it's a breaking change. So with the semantic versioning and the conventional commits, you can, and you have already installed Melos, you put your packages into a /packages directory instead of directly in the lib. So in Flame, for example, we have packages /Flame for the core engine, and then we have like a lot of bridge packages like Flame_audio, for example. So that is in package /Flame audio. And then when you run Melos Bootstrap, it sets up, it pulls down, does pub-get on everything, and then it sets up these overrides so that all of the packages are dependent on each other locally instead of directly from pub. And then later you can run Melos version when you have done some changes, you have some commits, you have put up some commits with the conventional commit tag in it. And then Melos version will calculate all the new versions that should be published for the packages that you have in there. So you don't have to do any changes at all to your pub/spec files. Melos handles everything. And after you've done Melos version, you have a very pretty changelog, and you do Melos publish, and it will just publish all of those packages at once to pub. And so you don't have to care which order or anything they're published. Melos will just figure that out for you. And then all the people that are dependent on your packages, they can just do pub upgrade, and they will get the latest packages that you have. So then we have the changelog generation, and it's like I said earlier, it's just amazing that you don't have to do this yourself, and you still have this information in or you already have this information in Git. So why would you have to write it again? But it's not very nice to look back in Git, and especially if it's a mono-repository, because then all of the commits will be over different packages. So this will generate a changelog for each package and one global changelog for every package in the root of your mono-repository. So this is what it could look like, for example. And in here we don't see any breaking changes because it took a little bit too much space because this changelog for Flame version 1.3 is very long. And then you can have like migration instructions and all kinds of things connected to your changelog here. So for the user going in here, they can just like click these ones and they will get to the actual pull request that did it, and from the pull request they can see the issue if they want that, or directly to the Git hash. Yeah, and as I said, that will be able to upload the packages seamlessly to PubDef, and yeah, for the places I have been where we have used Melos, it cuts the maintenance time a lot, even if you don't publish things to pub, because you still want to generate change logs, and you still want to be able to have the package dependency within the monorepo, etc. And that's actually all. Do you have any questions?
Yeah, do you find any usages for this tool for non-public, let's say, like private projects? And also, that's one question. Second question is, what happens if you do an unconventional commit?
Yes.
Can you repeat the question for the screen?
Yes. So if I would use this tool for my personal projects or projects that are not published, that was the first question. And the second question was... wait, what was the second question? Oh, yes. What happens if you push a commit that doesn't have the conventional commit tag on it? So for the first question, yes, I use it for everything, because like it's very, like once you have built up a little bit of your Melos YAML file, you usually find nice things that you have in there that you can bring over to your other projects. And like I usually want change logs in my other projects too, especially if you're not working alone on them. And even if you only have one package, it's super nice to be able to easily extend to more packages later, and you can also easily add scripts and stuff that you can run even though you only have one package. And what happens if you don't push a conventional commit? The only thing that happens is that it will be ignored by the changelog generation and by bumping the versions. So you can have unconventional commits in there if you want to. Like if you don't squash your commits in the system that is handling your repository. So I usually squash the commits down to only have the last one with the conventional commit in it. But you could also, some people are arguing that, oh no, you don't want to destroy history, like you shouldn't squash commits. Then just don't squash the commits and only have the tag on the commit that is getting merged, and then you will have all of the other commits there, but the only thing the changelog will care about is the last conventional commit that comes in there.
How do you enforce this? Like, people in the community
Yes.
adding stuff they're not super good with, like...
Good question. So there are like actions if you use GitHub that enforces this automatically, and they're already pre-built. And it's the same for Azure, and I think there is one for Bitbucket, and for what's the other one called, where they do merge request instead of pull request?
GitLab.
GitLab, yes. And they have it too. So you don't even have to build that thing in your pipeline yourself. People are putting up a pull request, and they will be like, oh no, your title is wrong, you have to use a conventional commit. You can go to this site and check what kind of conventional commits you can use. Any more questions?
Is it the same with the CI tools, CI, CD?
Yeah, I mean,
The question?
yeah. So is it the same if you use like if you use CI/CD? Should you continue to work like you did before, or should you change anything? So usually you want to change things, but it's very simple. Like you want to do a Melos bootstrap before, and you want to, maybe if you're running your test, you want to run Melos test instead of Flutter test, because Melos test will be much faster if you're running on many packages if you haven't split that up onto different machines or so. So there are a few things that you can change if you want to your CI, and it's for like you should do those changes. It makes your life easier later. Any more questions? No, I guess not. Over to Victor.
Thank you, Lukas. You want to grab your laptop?
Yeah, sure. Want this one?
Yes. Okay. All right, just putting the slide up there with the next meetup, and hopefully shows up, right? So there's also a QR code there you can scan and find our Slack group. So if you haven't joined that, do that. And otherwise, we have like an hour we can mingle and talk and have another beer. Yeah, don't miss the meetup on October 13th. That's the next time. All right. Thanks for coming.
Thank you for coming. I would like to take this opportunity to invite you all to another opportunity, and that is if you have something to say, or if you are involved in a community that needs a host for an event like this, feel free to connect with me, and we can make something, or not something exactly like this happen for you, actually. Also, I posted an invitation to a party that we have in 2 weeks here. If you want to get to know us better, we have an autumn party here on October 6th. So check that out and feel free to come. Thank you for coming. And there's more beer and